So let's start with the basic question, kind of like the About Me on your campaign website. Tell us about your journey to elected office. First, maybe some biographical stuff, and then your journey into city politics.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a first generation American, first generation college student. I was born in Punjab, India, the northern state of India. So I always say my first two languages were Punjabi and Hindi. We immigrated to this country in the early 90s, and my family started off in the flea market business selling furniture, which is where I learned how to negotiate and make deals at a young age. And we always focused on getting a good education. So when I was a kid, that was our biggest number one priority, was focus on our education. So thankfully, I was able to go to Rice, where I studied policy studies, and always wanted to focus on social justice because the September 11th terrorist attacks were a really pivotal moment in my childhood. Getting into human rights and civil rights law, I realized that you could fight a case your entire life and families may not see justice in that situation. And so I wanted to make sure that I was working on creating solutions on the front end. And so that's how I got into education. I was a Teach for America intern, and I became a first-year teacher in Houston ISD, teaching English as a second language, and have been in education now for 15 years. So when I moved to San Antonio about 7-8 years ago, I was working for an organization called City Education Partners, and our entire goal was to ensure that every student inside Loop 410, which includes some of our most underserved areas, had access to a high-quality education. And we had a lot of resources at our disposal to make that happen. And what I realized when we were working with some of our most underserved communities, that there were so many community issues around the schools that were affecting how students were able to achieve. So if a student comes to school hungry, if a student can't see the board, if they're coming from an unsafe community where they're facing a lot of trauma, if they can't walk safely to schools because their sidewalks are impaired or they have major drainage issues, or if there's no lighting in the evening and can't be outside and exercise, all of those community issues were issues that the city helps to oversee. And I felt that there was a gap there that I could address. So that's why I got into city politics, because I was working incredibly hard to build these innovative schools with our school districts, and working on public school choice for families. But I really felt like I could be a voice and advocate for more services that surround schools and communities.
And you actually first came onto my radar because you had a campaign event at my apartment clubhouse. I live at the Refugio Place Apartments. And before I got the flyer for your event, I didn't even know we had a clubhouse. And so I imagine just to have the event there, y'all had to get the brooms out and dust the cobwebs off, because I don't think that clubhouse gets used a lot. But I wonder, those kind of events, how important were those boots on the ground, in the district engagement events to your campaign?
So they were incredibly important. I would say the number one most impactful part of the campaign that we focused most of our energy on was block walking. So I announced that I was going to run in October, which gave us a lot of time to actually do the work. And so I spent the fall just fundraising, and then starting off in January, I was block walking. So I joked and said I block walked 3 seasons in one campaign, because I was out there in winter boots one day, and an abuelita was like, "You have 5 months, mamita, go home." And I was like, "No, I'm going to stay out here." And so I walked in winter and spring and in summer for the runoff. So we block walked a significant amount. I almost hit 4,500 doors by the end of the campaign myself. And our campaign team had hit over 10,000. And so that was the most enlightening process I have ever experienced, because I was able to hear from residents one-on-one what their issues were, and they were able to see my heart and the desire to help them and be a voice to create change. The second most important thing were those events, because they would allow us to bring people together and really hear issues that were consolidated together. There's some things going on at your apartment complex that the tenants really wanted to tell me about. And so it was a two-way conversation. I got to tell them the things that I had been seeing and hearing from other of their neighbors, and they were able to tell me the issues that were really affecting them.
And I wonder how you're adjusting to being a public official. You go from, having a level of anonymity to being somebody that people may notice in the grocery store, or your constituents will expect something from. So how is that adjustment for you?
So I am very much perceiving this as like a servant leadership position, which most of my education experience has been to. When you're a school teacher, a school leader, if parents will come up to you still at the grocery store if your kids go there. And so I am honestly just honored when someone is coming up to me and asking me for something. It means I can help them in some way. So we've already had some little small things that we've been able to do to help the community. So San Pedro Springs Pool, they'd request, some residents had requested for that hours to be extended because they're supposed to close, I think, this next weekend. And, you know, on the weekend, families can still use the pool, even if school is in session. And so we were able to successfully get the pool extended through September, which was really exciting. And that only came to me because residents either, and nowadays it's less about the grocery stores because I don't actually go to the grocery store to shop. I do curbside, but it's more about social media and being accessible on whatever method of communication that folks want to reach out to. So we're really excited about that. Also, in the budget that just came out, we have been advocating for a community center, just called the Kenwood Community Center. And that community center has been closed for a year. And in the budget, we were thrilled to see that that community center is going to be reopened and actually rehabilitated. So they're going to put some more funds than just like fixing it up, which was really exciting for us.
And of course, the biggest hot potato for any D1 city council person is the construction on the St. Mary's Strip. I actually drove through St. Mary's, I think yesterday, and it looked great, but that's probably not a lot of solace to the business owners who lost money over the last 2 years. Tell us, how do you think the city should go about getting right with those folks?
So first and foremost, it's been really unfortunate to see some of our most beloved places on the strip. Like we were so bummed to see that Squeeze Box was shutting down, and that, you know, those businesses that are on the strip have been there. And the most disheartening thing for me when I was campaigning and block walking was that the owners truly felt like they were being pushed out, that there was some concerted, you know, effort to make sure that concentrated effort to make sure they were actually not existent there anymore. So first and foremost, I think it's our responsibility now to help bring people back. Like that, the strip is open, and we need to make sure that everyone knows, come back to the strip. You're going to be able to access it easily. You won't have to deal with any construction. We also want to restart the conversation around parking because that had been put on hold during the massive construction. So figuring out a way to make sure that folks have easy access to all of their favorite restaurants and places to go out. So I'm headed there for lunch today to go to Sings because I love their food. And so making sure that we're creating more excitement and buzz is, I think, the very minimum that we can do. And also learning from this experience, right? We've seen how difficult it was for these businesses. And so knowing that the city is putting money into the budget specifically for construction mitigation when construction is happening on streets is a huge win, I think. And second, there's a CCR that council members White and Jalen McCree-Rodriguez have put together about actually mitigating. How do we create a fund that either is a revolving zero interest loan fund or a grant fund that folks can apply to and actually access? And most importantly, the thing that I've been saying is we need to have the end user at the table when we're coming up with these programs. So it's our responsibility to make sure funds are allocated, but we need to also make sure that the business owners are getting a voice in how the program runs. Because the first time we tried to do this, we didn't ask if they would, you know, be willing to provide input. And then we came up with a program that nobody could access. So it didn't actually help anyone. So making sure we're doing human-centered design, you know, end user-centered design is really important.
And I did want to turn that question on its head a little. Of course, at any given time, if you're out on St. Mary's at night, you know, sometimes, you know, people get overserved. You see, sometimes you see fights on the internet, little viral brawls, even Sings, which I love too. At one point, you know, had a drunk driver run into it and had to close its doors for a couple months. I wonder if in your mind, the business owners on the strip share any of the responsibility for some of the decline we've seen in the strip over the last couple of years.
Absolutely. And I think it's all of our responsibility to make sure that we are educating folks and educating young ones, and even not sometimes young folk, on how to be responsible and how to make sure that they're treating the community like their own, because it's all of our responsibility to make sure we're getting that health message out. At the same time, I think it's really important that we make sure the business owners are not over serving or or just following the law, quite frankly. But they have made some efforts where they have increased the amount of time that they will not stop serving at the end of the night to allow people to be in their places without. So I think like last call was moved up to 1:30 or earlier, and it was at like 1:45 previously. And so I don't know that they are trying. There are now trash receptacles all along the strip, so hopefully we won't see as much trash. But we have to just make sure that, one, we are creating that is a safe environment, and the increasing of the substation right there on the strip, I think, will be helpful. Even though all of those officers aren't going to be just for the strip, it's obviously just a substation, but just having that presence there, I think, will be important. And at the end of the day, like we see this with entertainment areas a lot, right? How do you make sure that you're keeping everyone safe? And they do have police presence there, so we just have to keep making sure that that police presence is supported and they're able to be eyes and ears watching as folks are leaving to go home.
And you came into office at an interesting time for a local official. Of course, HB 2127, the so-called Death Star bill, is now law in Texas. And, its critics call it an all-out assault on local control. I wonder, in your opinion, how important is it, or not important, is it for local officials to be pushing back on limitations on local control?
Well, I think it's really important to make sure we have the ability to help our community. Our number one job as elected officials is to hear about problems and issues as they occur, and then help create policy to make community and quality of life better for our residents, to help our businesses thrive, and to make sure that we're all working together towards our common vision. Or, we just got off the phone with the SA 2020, our community vision for the next 10 years. That's our responsibility. And if we don't have the ability to create policy that helps support that, we're essentially handcuffing ourselves. And so I think it's incredibly important that we work together to figure out what exactly does this bill mean? What are we able to and not able to do? And just push back on, this is the need for local control in instances, so that's my perspective on it.
Mm-hmm. And you're now the representative for downtown. Such an interesting time for downtown. We have Civic Park opening soon. The Alamo restoration project's well underway. Looks like they're finishing up La Villita. There's talk of a sports district, maybe. Final Four is on the way. At this time of great change for downtown, just how exciting is it for you to be the representative for downtown? And do you plan on getting your fingerprints on some of these projects and making sure they're a success?
Yeah, I would love to help in any way I can. I truly believe if you look at some of our most successful cities, they have a thriving downtown. I mentioned the SA 2020 community vision, a downtown that everyone is able to live, work, play in. And there's also components about learning and businesses thriving and visitors wanting to come back. Those are really important considerations that we have to make sure are existent in our downtown. And right now we have some work to do. And so I'm excited to be a part of that work, because it's not in my mind, people are saying like the decade of downtown is over. Until our downtown is a thriving space that meets all of those criteria, I don't think we can stop focusing on it. But that doesn't mean we don't focus on our neighborhoods too. And helping to be a voice for, we can do both. We can create a downtown that's thriving and also support our neighborhoods to make sure our streets aren't falling apart, and we have sidewalks that are accessible, and folks can access multimodal transportation and have great schools and have the sufficient lighting and have all of the resources that they need in their neighborhoods. Those two things are not incongruent with each other.
And as we start to wrap this up, I'm old enough to remember when District 1, in the days of now State Representative Diego Bernal, was the stable district. And now we've had turnovers in leadership in the last two elections. Former Councilman Roberto Trevino, of course, lost to your opponent in the last cycle, Mario Bravo, who you just defeated. I wonder if we could, play Nostradamus a little and go 22 months in the future. Do you see yourself avoiding controversy and being reelected?
Well, I absolutely hope so. I truly believe, and so my chief of staff, Andrew Solano, always says this. There's always two sides to an issue, and there will always be people on both sides and residents on both sides of the issue. And it's going to be, you can never make the entire district happy with everything that you do. But what you can do is making sure that you listen to the community voice and listen to all sides of the issue and make a decision that you think will really help move the district and help move the city forward. And so if 100% of the people are voting for me, I don't think I've done anything for the community, but I absolutely hope that the community sees I'm really here to create change. It's difficult to do that in 2 years, but at the end of the day, I can't predict the future. So I'm working incredibly hard every day. In the event that I only have 2 years, I'm going to give it my all. But I truly hope that everyone sees that, the community sees that I really just want to be an advocate for District 1 and help create that stability that we have with State Representative Diego Bernal.
And I wanted to finish this conversation on a bit of a lighter note. I saw before the election, I think it was actually the Saturday before the runoff election, you were playing pickup basketball. And I'm actually a pickup basketball junkie myself. I play every Thursday at First Baptist Church on West Ave. I wonder if you were picking a pickup basketball team among your city council colleagues, who would be your first pick?
Oh, that's a tough choice. I don't actually know who plays basketball on our council. It's so funny. I saw Garrett from KSAT out because I'm a big sports enthusiast. It's, I think, one of the biggest reasons why I'm able to work on teams. Or I think I'm able to really be a good team player is because of my team sports history. So I've been playing basketball for, I guess, 25 years now. And I also now have a big flag football team called Lush Unit, and we're an all women's team, which is where I saw Gear in the field. So I play basketball, football, and then dabble with golf a little bit. And I used to play volleyball, but I never really got hooked on it as much. But anywho, so I truly believe that team sports are incredibly important. And when you play pickup, it's like you have to, the funnest part is like, you got to become team members and friends with whoever picks you up randomly at that moment. And so it's like the quickest way to get adapted to folks. I actually would love to advocate for more indoor public spaces for sports and facilities, because we have a lot that are associated with gyms that require private memberships, and a lot of our community doesn't have access to it. And so I would love to see like a Factory of Champions style public resource for our community. Anywho, so to go back to your question, I don't really know who else plays ball on council, but those would be my first choices, is the people that have the team sports background.
Well, Councilwoman, you're always welcome at our Thursday night pickup game. And thank you so much for joining the program.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.